Another thing I'm responsible for, gravy. You know, Americans, they don't know anything about gravy, mate. They don't appreciate gravy. They don't make gravy. What's the move, though?
Is there like
they
a
use
special
the powdered
ingredient?
gravy, right? You're not doing the powdered gravy.
Bistro.
You're taking the juices, right?
Oh, yeah.
Drippings.
Are you taking it from the three birds as well?
Yeah,
hold on.
The
lamb.
It will be yeah.
Let me set this up, Jack. So a lot of our unsophisticated listeners from North America, myself included, this is how we're doing gravy. We're going and we're buying the McCormick powdered gravy, right? Embarrassing.
If you can even find it, mate.
Yeah, if you can even find it. So, Jack, what are you doing? What are you doing with your gravy this year? Explain to us how you're making this gravy.
Well, I can't be giving it away, but I will say it comes from the nectar of all three main meats.
Welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. You got Jack Butcher, Bilal Zaidi Trung Phan. Boys, what a year we've had. Thanks to everyone listening to us all year. Hope you guys have been enjoying the holiday period and the new year. But we got a nice content recommendation episode. You guys have really liked this in the past. So we're going to each share something to watch, something to read, and something to listen to. Let's start with read. Who wants to go first? Either of you got something? Go for it, Jack.
I'm gonna shill my own bags, boys.
Wait, Jack put his hand up, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I love that. I love it.
We're in class. Class is in session, boys. You ready?
Shill the bags.
All right, I'm gonna do a screen share for it.
The sovereign individual or the Bitcoin standard.
You should have already read that.
Yeah, reread it.
Satoshi's white paper. Satoshi's white paper.
yeah.
Well, this is the sequel to all of those things. CryptoPunks free to claim, boys. Nice little coffee table, Fade On produced book.
Fade
Your
On
boy is a contributor to.
Whoa!
Nice.
So,
tell us about the book. What's going on?
So it came out a couple months ago. Did a little launch event in Miami. Signed some books with my collaborator Jalil. We co-wrote a chapter in there, and it's like a great gift actually. Anyone crypto art curious for Christmas? But there's like a series of interviews, chapters, some people talking about like the history of crypto art, some people talking about the collection specifically. There's like all 10,000 of these of the portraits in there, but just beautifully produced object that if you're curious about any of this stuff, I would highly recommend grabbing it. I think you can get it. There you go, 30% off and free shipping with code HOLIDAY on fadeon.com.
There we go. Well, it's PHAIDON.
I'm gonna get one actually because Fade On makes really nice books.
Yeah, I think you might enjoy it, lads.
All right, I like that. Yeah, you know
Love
what? I like that. You're allowed to shill here. You're allowed to shill. There's no rule against shilling people because we don't shill anything else. We shill our own stuff.
Trung says that just is about to tee up a best of Trung blog post series.
Trung, what was your best fit read of the year? Well, it wasn't a read. It was actually an AI-powered research app.
Yeah. Readtrung.com. There you go.
Well, let me.
I'll
give you my book of the year.
I know you probably got some good ones.
My book of the year was Heedy, bro. It came out this year earlier. Nuclear War: A Scenario by Annie Jacobson. Have you guys heard this?
No.
It's a fictional telling of how a end of the world nuclear war could happen in basically 2024, and it came out. I mean, the reason we're doing this, the reason I was interested in it is obviously things have gotten pretty heaty out in Europe over there, and certain rhetorics have risen, and it seems to me that the Biden administration towards the end of their term has been willing to kind of escalate things. But this book is extremely relevant, and it's made me pretty. All of us have known the threat of nuclear war, but nothing like during the Cold War, right? Like Cuban Missile Crisis, when the world was literally seconds away, or two decisions away from being ended. And the reason this book's great, though, is it explains like how quickly these decisions have to be made, because the threat of a nuclear attack basically leaves the leader of the main countries. I think in this book it says the president of the United States would have 6 minutes to decide whether or not to send a massive counter strike. And yet the thing you have to remember about the Russia, China, particularly Russia and the U.S., but China is also growing its nuclear arsenal. There are submarines right now that can stay underwater for basically 18 months at a time. And their entire purpose, these are like 3,000 to 4,000 men and women subs. Their entire purpose is to launch a nuclear counterstrike. They're probably just waiting outside these countries and literally just obliterate a country off the face of the earth in seconds. Because when these people forget, it's like these nukes that we have now, they're multiples times stronger than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And she just goes through detail. I mean, the book does have some like a plot holes and like logical leaps, because she basically the way that this thing really pops off is that North Korea sends a nuke to the United States. The United States misreads it. They send nukes back to North Korea, but the Russians see that nukes are headed their way. And the big plot hole here, the logical leap, is that basically the president of Russia and the president of the United States are not talking. And that creates this misconfusion where Russia has basically 2 minutes to decide. Do we send back like a full-on counterattack, which will wipe half of America off the map, or do we not, right? And you can see, but she kind of goes through the psychology of how difficult that decision is. Obviously, the most difficult decision. And my takeaway of it from a larger point is this. I'll leave it with this. I highly recommend this book. It's short. It's 200 pages. And I think it will steal a lot of people to actually this threat of nuclear war that we've kind of forgotten as a society. Thankfully, we have, but it's inching closer. It's like, this idea with Russia, Ukraine, and America is whenever somebody wants to talk to Putin, it's like when Tucker went to see Putin, it's like, oh my God, he's a Putin apologist. It's like, why are we talking to Putin? It's like, actually, the lesson of the Cuban Missile Crisis is you need to be able to have a direct line to the leader with the finger on the button on the other country. That was actually one of the big lessons of the Cuban Missile Crisis. Khrushchev, the head of the Soviet Union, and President Kennedy did not have a direct line. Yeah, think about how crazy that is. You almost had a nuclear Armageddon to destroy the world, and the two leaders deciding this didn't have a direct line to each other. So I think, yes, people should talk to Putin. I think the Western leaders need to talk to Putin. I think it's extremely important this is what Trump coming in, he's more than happy to talk to Putin. Biden won't do it. It's extremely important to have these two leaders do it. That's my big takeaway. I think this book will convince a lot of people of the same.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Trunk. I'll do, I actually had two, so I'm just going to share them both. I wasn't sure which one. They're kind of in a similar mood. Have you guys read, this is a few years old now, but did you guys ever read When Breath Becomes Air? Did you read that?
Oh, is that about the doctor who died?
Yeah. Did you read that?
Amazing book.
Amazing book, right?
Yeah.
And so it's by Paul Kalanithi. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but it's a real story about a neurosurgeon who's faced with terminal cancer and his diagnosis with the cancer diagnosis, and he attempts to answer the question, what makes a life worth living? I will say, heads up, it's quite heavy, right? So like for people who, you got to be in the right frame for that. For me, it was a really nice, kind of helped me throughout the year. As you guys know, I had a bit of a rough year, and just there was a lot of this reflection sort of stuff that I was reading, and this really helped me kind of frame certain things. He was also a great writer. I think he does a great job of capturing some of those moments.
Dude, rest in peace, man. No, for
rest
real.
Rest in peace. Yeah, incredible. Yeah.
Bilal, I just want to say there's a part of it, the most moving part, tell me if you remember this, was the letter he wrote specifically to his child, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you just think about it now, it's like, spoiler alert, he obviously passed away. But imagine his kids now reading this as well, or his kid reading this. So pretty amazing. Definitely, I think I'll probably reread that. And I've had it on my list for years and just never got to it. And it felt like I was in the right frame of mind to read it. Was really nice. I think especially if you've got kids, or you've had some, all of us go through stuff where people are passing away or getting sick, that sort of stuff. That sort of frame for me really helped. And then the second one, I'll say, Derek Sivers, who, to be honest, he seems like a super nice guy. not always in the mood for his style, to be really frank, but like on podcasts and stuff, he can be a little bit in a certain mood. It's okay, but I'm not always in the mood
Goes
for
on
it.
a lot of tangents.
Yeah, exactly. But this book, he wrote a book called How to Live. I don't know if you read this one.
No.
This was quite interesting because it's basically, I think, 27 conflicting ideas. So he's not actually telling you this is how you should live, but it's kind of a summary of different ideas we would have all heard of, and like being exposed to in different phases of our life. And you basically read one chapter and then the next chapter is directly conflicting that. And it kind of makes it also in a very reflective way, this idea of, oh, well, actually, where do I land in this kind of debate? You know, should I be someone who's chasing lots of money, or should I just be someone who needs a little bit? You know, do I want to be a full-time creative person and that's the whole essence of life, or is it actually that can be a hobby? And so there's lots of different, you know, it's 27 of them. And I just thought it was a really well written, to the point, quite short as well. You could probably read it in a few hours. A nice one if you're in the mood for that. I'd recommend.
Bro, these records got pretty real, man.
yeah, that one definitely. But
well, actually, let me throw one more in. Get the Kelvin and Hobbes full on comic set, 4-part, $130, beautiful. I think it's the heaviest New York Times best-selling product ever. I will also go listen to my caffeinated deep dives episode on Bill Waters and Kelvin Hobbes. But I've been reading that book nonstop with my son, Jack. I know Ford's not quite there yet, but a couple of years, that's what you should be reading him. All right, next topic,
beautiful.
Guys.
Should we get on to watch or listen? Do you know what? Let's just do listen real quick, because my one was another audiobook, because I didn't have any other, I didn't have a podcast or something this time. But do you guys have anything to listen? We can do song of the year and stuff as well, but
let's do song different. Let's do listen. Let's do podcast. We love podcast.
Let's do listen podcast.
It was the
audiobook.
podcast election, people. Let's make podcasting its own category. Okay, best podcast of the year, audiobook. Bilal, go.
I won't say this was the best, but it was one I just enjoyed. It's our mutual friend of the pod, Nat Eliason. Did you read his book, Crypto Confidential? I thought he did a great job of capturing that era which we all went through, and if you listen to this pod, you went through it with us. 2021, Jack was a big part of it in his own way, and just in fact, Tom Osman, our friend of the pod who's been on the show, is mentioning it, as you know, when he did the Ether Rock stuff. But he basically just goes through it. I thought he did a really good job of kind of sharing a story of what he went through that time of like trying to get to this big net worth goal, playing in the trenches, learning to code, building a game, you know, the highs and the lows, losing money on Luna. It was kind of reminding me, as we're going through this bull run right now, all the different phases, and honestly kind of stuff to look out for again, where, you know, people are getting overhyped or people are starting to get, you know, cooked essentially. So,
and he read it. I mean, he does the audio.
He does it. And I would say you can read it, but I just put as listen, because I actually, not all audiobooks I can listen to, and he does a good job of reading it himself.
Well, it's like Goggins, right? Nothing beats the Goggins audiobook.
Yeah, exactly. That you can do that one in the gym.
And Obama
but yeah, I thought that was a good one.
Obama probably has my favorite audiobook. Actually, no. Christopher Hitchens reads his own audiobooks. Hitch 22, I recommended that a couple years ago. But Obama with Dreams of My Father, he reads that one in his own voice.
I haven't heard that. I've read it, but I haven't listened to it. That's,
listen, it's
nice
different.
To listen
it hits
to
different.
His voice on that. But yeah, definitely. Again, I won't say it was necessarily like the best read in the whole year or anything, but it was good. He did a good job, and it was nice way to revisit some of those things, but also kind of learn a little bit about the different areas of crypto essentially, but then in a kind of a nice personal story as well. So it was good.
That was great. Jack?
Podcast, boys. I don't even know if I've listened to any podcasts this year.
Well, why don't you hit the one you've listened to the most? we'll just pin it with that.
Well, you could have a book as well, to be honest.
My podcast and my book are actually overlapping. So actually, no, I did give a different book. So let me.
What is Money by Michael Saylor? 12 hours. Sorry,
you joke.
Robert Breedlove, 12 hours.
Yeah,
it is that, but not Michael Saylor.
Fair enough.
Jason Lowery
with Breedlove.
With Breedlove. So
what
I was
topic?
gonna give the book recommendation. I went lighter, but the original book recommendation was gonna be Soft War. We talked about that. I think I dropped a mention of it.
Larry
It's like,
Ellison?
I don't remember. Yeah, go on. What was that?
this guy Jason Lowery is he works in a space force now, but I think he's an MIT graduate and he's been working in the U.S. military for his whole career. And he wrote a book called Soft War, which is about the national security implications of Bitcoin. And he went on the Breedlove show and did
I'm adding this right now, dude.
Don't know how many episodes, but just an incredible, like another crazy framing of, the implications of Bitcoin as a national security asset, and this like the potential downstream effects of being able to engage in conflict without hot hardware, if that makes sense. Like you can resolve
Not a kinetic
conflicts.
war, right?
Exactly.
Weapons.
You resolve conflict with software, and Bitcoin is like a fundamental advancement in the ability
What
to do
is
that. So,
what is the thesis? What is the thrust? What does Bitcoin do that can make humanity avoid kinetic war?
makes it too expensive, basically. Like that's the thesis, and it will be much better explained either whether you prefer the podcast or the book format. The book is like heavy. You have to go back and I do. I have to go like read every page a couple times before I move on to the next one. But super interesting ideas in there. And well, actually, you know what? When you ask again, like the main theme in the book is this concept of power projection. So like throughout history, there have been these different technologies that are forms of power projection. You know, in like ancient China, gunpowder was originally used as a medicine. And it wasn't until 100, 200 years later that people figured out you could pack it into a barrel and fire ballistics with it. But the basic premise in the first couple of chapters, the argument is like, you don't get to opt out of a power projection technology, you know? If all of the nations that you are potentially in conflict with are using gunpowder, you don't have the option to opt out of gunpowder. You will just get literally steamrolled, destroyed. And Bitcoin is now at a scale where it becomes a method to project power that we just saw happen in elections here, for example. But if you scale up the influence of that and the like game theory at a nation state level of a monetary network of that description, there are all these implications. Again,
Wait, Jack, when you say the election, you mean there's 80 million owners of Bitcoin in America, and that is a power block, a block that you can try to, as a politician, you either try to appease them or you basically do what the Democratic Party did was just push them away, right?
Well, like I think that was the previous chapter. The chapter is like, imagine an administration that embraces that at scale.
Right.
Like, what does that mean for other countries? What, like, if you adopt something at scale as a national reserve asset that your citizens are also exposed to, there are all of these downstream effects of that just haven't been the case for, not ever, but in the speed and the access that exists for people to adopt this. And those conversations are happening at these like ridiculously high levels now compared to a couple of years ago. And this guy's book, I think, came out, I don't know, Bitcoin was probably, he's been a Bitcoin guy since the beginning. I don't think he published this book until a couple of years ago, but when Bitcoin was, $1,000, reading this book, you'd be like, oh, this is kind of an interesting theory. And now you're like, oh yeah, makes complete sense. Get this guy an office in the White House type thing, yeah.
Well, let me add a couple of layers onto what Jack said here. I want to give a very specific example of monetary. It's like, I don't know if you guys remember, but when silver became used as a means of exchange, a type of money, like Spain would literally send boats around the world to mine silver, right? And to have a currency. It's like when you're talking, it just made you realize like something can have literally affect the real world by it becoming a power base for a monetary network, right? Like wars were fought, mines were dug out, the earth was changed for silver, right? Same with gold. And the other part about power projection, the immediate thing that came to my mind is naval power projection, right? Is like in the World War I and World War II, I mean, famously, World War II is if you didn't have a navy, people realized what was going on. Not only that, is like the thing about World War II, which was the big change in naval battle, was that it was no longer about battleships. You didn't have these giant battleships. It was about the aircraft carrier, because the aircrafts could smoke out the battleships, right? So the key was no longer. I mean, if you read about World War II, the battles in the Pacific. Midway was the big one where the Americans beat the Japanese, and like one of the reasons why Pearl Harbor ended up not working out for the Japanese was that a lot of the aircraft carriers weren't actually docked at Pearl Harbor that day, and a lot of, I mean, just like these small things about history that change, right? So I love how Jack brought up the power projection, and no,
you're gonna love this, man. You're gonna go.
I'm gonna love
ape
it,
shit
dude.
over this.
I just pulled it up too. I already have a chub just thinking about listening to this podcast. But the last thing I'll add is the one now, because we mentioned the nuclear war, kind of Russia-Ukraine thing earlier, is drone warfare is the new form of power projection. If you think about how that basically Russia versus Ukraine has turned into a drone war. And this is extremely important because China is the number one drone maker in the world, and they're very good at manufacturing drones. So America, I mean, the world is coming to understand that right now, if you look at the pie of drone capacity, China is like 70% of it, right? And just power projection, things to think about. All right, let me throw my thing.
Can I drop a Naval quote in after that?
Yeah, hit it.
Drones are to infantry as muskets were to knights.
Game over. There you go.
There we go.
Mic drop.
Beautiful.
All right, let me just do. I'll do a quick podcast reco. Well, right now I'm pre-recommending Software by Jason Lowry. So that's Robert Breedlove. I got that teed up. No, my I'll stick my reco of the year will be Rest is History. I've mentioned it on this podcast before.
Oh yeah.
The Rest is History podcast. Last year I recommended the Dictators podcast. This year is the Rest is History. Shit, I might have recommended Rest is History last year, man. I don't care. Go listen to it. It's an amazing podcast. It's two British folk, Tom Holland and Dominic. I don't even know Dominic's last name. But two storied.
Sandbrook.
Yeah, Sandbrook. I mean, you guys probably listened to this episode. I think this is the number one or two biggest podcasts in the UK. They're massive in the States now. They're actually part of
the Rest is Politics, I think, under the same umbrella.
Oh yeah, they're part of the Gary Lineker podcast network.
Oh, so
Lineker, the football player, right?
Oh no way, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So here's a backstory in the podcast. Actually, I think they're doing they're probably making $1 million a month on it. But Gary Lineker, ex-football player. British, was he? He's on Team England, right?
Yeah, legend. Yeah, he's
legend.
a host of Match of the Day and a legendary England striker. And
so he's a big time
person,
a media personality.
Yeah, he was one of the best footballers in the world back in the day.
I think Gary Lineker,
before our time, to be honest.
Before Beckham, right?
Yeah, way before. Yeah.
I think Lineker's brother had a history podcast, and then he basically pinged Tom Holland, and Tom Holland's a big writer. Actually, we've talked about Tom Holland's book here, Dominion, about Christianity. He's a great. Some people call him a pop historian. They're like, he just popularizes history. But the rest is history. If you want to get started, I'd recommend the Vietnam War. It's 2 episodes, the end of the Vietnam War, just because I'm a Vietnam homer. But his series on the Titanic, their series, 6 episodes, incredible series on the Titanic. Explains just how that all went down and like the geopolitical consequences of it and like the cultural setup of people forget, but like the Titanic was basically like funded by JP Morgan and like people of that ilk, right? And there's a lot of class elements involved, but like the film Titanic didn't really represent, because you remember like Leo was like in the bottom with the quote unquote poors is how they kind of described it. It was like actually they weren't like shuttered away and like locked away. It was just a poorly managed ship situation. Anyways, that was a reco. Let's hit what was it? Watch. Okay, Bilal. Film or TV?
I was looking up when you said, I didn't realize this. So they're owned by the Goalhanger Network. Which
Lineker.
It looks like Lineker, and it's Rest is Politics. I've listened to that. Rest is Football with Gary Lineker, Mika, legendary guy, Alan Shearer. The Rest is Money. So they've got a bunch. And the Empire, I've listened to that one as well. That's pretty good as well. So there's some good pods in that network. So do you want to do Watch now? Something to watch, boys?
Watch.
Film or TV show?
Yeah.
Anything? Do one of you two want to go? Jack, you got anything?
Jack.
But did we do this last year? When did The Gentleman come out?
Yeah, we did cover.
Yeah.
I think I said it.
Is
that was
that
last year
Gil-
in the summer.
Who's that?
Man,
Who's
it's
that?
crazy.
That was incredible.
Snatch-
That was
the
probably
Guy
my
Ritchie,
favorite show of the year.
Guy Ritchie
Ritchie, yeah,
adaptation. Banger.
Okay.
All right, come back to me then, because I'll look through my watch
I'll do one.
history.
I'll do one. I got a good one for you, Jack. I'm naming Jack specifically because this. I took my kid to watch this. Wild Robot. The Wild Robot. Y'all need to watch that.
Oh, yeah.
Animated film about a robot that washes up. A futuristic servant robot. Think like an Optimus Tesla robot that washes up on an island and then has to learn how to live with other animals. And then it takes care of a duck, teaches the duck eventually to learn how to grow up and fly. But this was funny. I took my son there. Great soundtrack. Amazing soundtrack. It has parallels with Terminator 2. It's because I watched this. Oh, this reminds me. I got a link to it. There is an explainer. There's a designer, Elliot Hill, or Mike Hill. Elliot Hill's the CEO of Nike now. I got that wrong. Mike Hill, a designer. He did a 40-minute YouTube video explaining the storytelling of Terminator 2. I gotta send it to you guys. So James Cameron actually watched it, stumbled on it on YouTube. He's like, "Oh yeah, you nailed it." He's like, "I didn't think about these things consciously, but you kind of nailed the idea." But like the way that this guy explains it, the Terminator 2 story is very like Jordan Peterson style. It's like talking about the evolutionary father-son dynamic. But if you think about Terminator 2, it's a family story. It's about a story of a broken family that gets brought together. There's a son, Eddie Furlong, who's the future John Connor. His mom, who doesn't have a father figure. So who ends up being the father figure is T2, which is Arnold as the Terminator, which is fucking crazy when you think about it. But it actually is a very well historical known like Hero with 1,000 Faces, hero's journey type thing, the family unit. So the Wild Robot is fucking basically T2 for kids. I'm like, oh my God, this is genius. So Wild Robot, watch that movie. It didn't do super well at the box office. Oh no, I think they did decently enough. They're gonna have a sequel for it. But very family friendly movie. Great soundtrack. That's my reco.
Love it.
Respect.
Jack, you got one, mate? Or
I got mine, yeah. I'm going to say Industry Season 3, class.
Incredible. Yeah, they were my two favorite shows this year too.
Insane,
Gentleman
man.
Industry.
Absolute class. And I think it was the best season, which is a rare...
Same, yeah.
It's rare to do that seasons in.
It's normally hard to get better, but I feel like because it's on HBO in the US. In the UK, was it on BBC or Channel 4? It was one of those originally. I can't remember.
But it's British. It's set in England, right?
Yeah, it's set in London, and it's essentially like an investment bank. And the first season is kind of like the graduating class, like a graduate scheme. So you're like 21, 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds doing like an internship or whatever. And so that one's already good. But then by this season, those characters have evolved. Like a lot of them are already working there now as like full-time employees. They've risen up the ranks, and they just went up a level, right? Like the level.
I gotta
like
get
my
into
favorite
this show, man.
Yeah, man, you'd love it.
And the two lads that made it were bankers originally. So it's such a great story. And I just looked at the Wikipedia page. The genre for the CFAs in the house is financial thriller. How about that?
Wait, that's the genre. So is this like
genre.
What else is in that? Yeah,
is it like
margin call?
billions? Is it like billions?
Yeah, I would say like it's like way more. It's way grimier, and it's got that little.
It's a lot more edge to it.
Yeah,
especially this season.
That Rishi episode.
I was literally just about to say that was my favorite episode. I don't want to spoil it for people,
good.
but
Trung, you're gonna love it. And you know what? That like
so good.
You, I kind of went down the rabbit hole on some of the production stuff afterwards. You know, the like little overheard chirps from Rishi across all the different episodes.
Yeah. Is that just him freestyling?
So many good details. Yeah. He's just like, you're gonna enjoy that, Trung. It's very good.
Okay,
definitely check that one.
Watch it from the start, though. Obviously, absolute class.
Very good, very good. Nice one, Jack. I'll do mine. Honestly, I those were my two favorite shows as well this year. So I didn't actually watch that many shows. So this is kind of random, but I recently just watched this film. It's not like a niche film. It might have won an Oscar or something. I don't know. But it's The Terminal. Did you guys ever watch that with Tom Hanks? Again, this is not. like groundbreaking here. But
No,
I just
stuck at the airport, right?
yeah, stuck at the airport, and it was kind of like a feel good. I just forgot how good he is. He's just so good. So the premise of the film is he's an Eastern European tourist, and he gets stuck in JFK. And it's Steven Spielberg movie. I think Stanley Tucci is in it as well. And what I loved about it was just it felt like a throwback. I think it's 2004. Let me check it. Yeah, 2004. So it's like a throwback sort of film. And the crazy thing is, I was like thinking about it because it looks like a straight up airport terminal. It looks like JFK. They recreated the whole set. Like they basically created an airport terminal somewhere in California or something. But it literally, they've got like Starbucks in it. They've got like
Catherine Zeta-Jones, right? Catherine Zeta-Jones?
Yes, Catherine Zeta-Jones is in it. Stanley
That
Tucci.
was peak Catherine
Pete Catherine
Zeta-Jones.
Zeta-Jones for real, yeah. And what I loved about it is kind of like he turns up at the airport. He gets stuck there because there's like some sort of war going on in his country, and he doesn't speak English, but then slowly he starts like finding ways to trade because he gets stuck there. So it's like an economy. So he starts using his labor, and he starts trading with people, and he starts finding a way to get food, and then he starts building up. You know, it's a ridiculous story. Obviously, it's not a real story.
No, it's based on a true story, actually.
Oh, but is it really? Oh, I didn't realize that.
it was so for the listeners, Bilal, tell me if this is right. It's basically a guy was flying, and then he gets stuck because his country basically dissolved during the flight, or had a civil war,
there's like
right?
a coup going on or something.
Yeah, I think, and that means his passport is no longer valid, so he's stuck in the airport until the immigration can figure it out, right?
Well, yeah, I'm seeing it here. It was based on inspired by a story, but it's one of those like inspired by. Yeah,
it's like very loosely inspired. But I'll tell you the one thing about that movie that I did enjoy, and this is my memory of it actually. I don't want to ruin the full, but the thesis is that he's going to. Is it New York, Bilal?
Yeah, in New York, yeah.
He needs to get something. Was it for his father's mother?
For his dad,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's like, man, that's like any great film or television show ultimately has that human, like the family element is like, because that's obviously the most universal thing. It's not surprising, but just keep your eyes out for that one. That's why Wild Robot, while I was watching, I'm like, oh man, they're recreating this family unit. That's what I noticed immediately.
Yeah.
I'm like, for kids, it's like, great job. But I love that reco.
No, it was it was a random. And then I'll just give a quick bonus one. Again, this wasn't like my favorite film ever, but I watched it like 2 nights ago. Banker Dave. Did you see this one?
No, what is this?
Jack, did you see this? This is based in Burnley. Yeah. And
you know what? I watched the first episode of it, yeah.
No, this was a film though. This was a film. So I don't know.
Oh, it was a film.
It was. Maybe you watched the whole thing then. But honestly, it's not even the best film ever or anything. But it was kind of a feel-good throwback, like silly film. But it's based on true story apparently, and it's essentially a guy from the north who sells like north of England trunk, and he's from Burnley, and he essentially just sells like vans, and he's done well in his community, and he's essentially trying to create the first ever bank, like a community bank. It's the first one that's going to be approved for 150 years in the UK, which is a true story. So that part is true, and it's about how that all comes together. Inspired by. But this one I think is way more actually real compared to the Terminal one in terms of stuff that actually happened.
The Terminal took a lot of liberties.
But that one was kind of fun. I mean, just like Christmas period, you might want to try it out, like a feel-good film. All right,
just
boys,
read the Nuclear War book on the 24th. And then on the 25th.
And watch Industry, because that one gets intense too. Then go watch a stupid film.
Or your Christmas
Industry
dinner. Listen to read the Nuclear War book, and then have a nice conversation at the Christmas table. Or whatever you celebrate over the holidays with your family and your loved ones. But guys, let's wrap
gone
up.
woke. He's not celebrating Christmas. I like it. There we go.
Festivus for the rest of us. Now I'm doing Christmas, man. I'm doing a Christmas dinner.
Of course. Are you doing it? What happens in Canada, Trung? Is it turkey? What's the bird of the day?
It's turkey, but man, turkey. You guys know the drill with turkey, man. That shit's too hard to do.
Yeah,
you got to get the smaller birds, man. Everyone messes up the turkey.
Jack, what are you doing? If you got this, I'm just curious.
Lamb, beef,
there we
chicken,
go.
boys.
Oh, dude, you're going trifecta.
I thought you were gonna throw a ham out there. No ham.
No. Leg of lamb, and then you want to do maybe a beef Wellington, boys, and then a couple of roast chickens.
You know,
is this
one of the greatest.
Or your mother-in-law? Because
mother-in-law will be commanding the station.
One of the greatest YouTube videos ever.
Okay.
Is Gordon Ramsay's beef Wellington on YouTube. No, but it's hilarious. Read the comments. It just goes, every year I watch this. I don't ever make it, but I watch it every year.
Hard to
That
make
sounds
well.
about right.
Yeah.
Hard to do a good job.
Jack,
boys.
are you cooking one of those up too, or
You know what? I've been demoted. All I do is wrap bacon around the sausages now, boys. That's it.
all right? Fair enough. All right. Well, I know your missus maybe listen to this, so we don't want to. I'll ask off air how you feel about it, Jack.
I'm
no,
very
messing
much
around.
looking forward to it, publicly
good
and
cook.
privately. Very,
Yeah,
very
okay,
good.
fair
cook.
enough. Messing around, but no, that is good to know because I'm curious. What? No, the leg of
Oh,
lamb
you know
is
what?
the move,
You
to
know
be
what?
honest.
Another thing I'm responsible for: gravy. You know, Americans,
Ooh, that's
they don't
key.
know anything about gravy, mate. They don't
Well, what do you
appreciate
mean, Jack?
gravy. They don't
What's
make
the move,
gravy.
though? Is there
No,
like
they
a
use the
special
powdered
ingredient?
gravy, right? You're not doing the powdered
Little
gravy.
bistro.
You're taking the juices, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Jack, tell us what you're doing.
Drippings.
Are you
The
taking it from the
Jack.
three birds as
Oh,
well?
yeah,
hold
You're
on,
getting
hold on.
lamb.
It will be a
Hold-
yeah.
Let me set this up, Jack. So a lot of our unsophisticated listeners from North America, myself included, this is how we're doing gravy.
Sophisticated.
We're going and we're buying the McCormick powdered gravy, right? Embarrassing.
If you can even find it, mate.
Yeah, if you can even find. So Jack, what are you doing? What are you doing with your gravy this year? Explain to us how you're making this gravy.
Well, I can't be giving it away, but I will say it comes from the nectar of all three main
There we go.
meats.
So what you're saying is
The
you know what?
drippings
Yeah.
get stirred up, and then
you
maybe
gonna-
you add a little
white
bit
wine?
of
White wine?
little liquid to it. No alcohol in
Chicken
there.
broth? What, chicken broth?
Maybe some broth, yeah.
some
Little broth,
okay.
little thickening
You're
agent.
getting
Oh, yeah.
venison. You're getting
What do you-
something big though, like
Cornstarch, Jack?
elk venison
Flour? Cornstarch? Or what are you going to do? Cornstarch. You're
Try
never
and,
going to put a little
try and
cornstarch.
avoid the cornstarch, don't you? But you have to have a little bit. Just get it to the required
Yeah, thickness.
thickness level.
you know.
This
has
is what people
has to
came
have
here
the
for.
Marks
Here
and
we go.
Spencer's ad, you know, the drizzle
beautiful, yeah.
at a certain rate. You can't be pouring water
Yeah,
over your
and
dinner,
you
can
don't want
boy?
you're not making a jus, right? You're making a proper gravy.
thick
Yeah,
gravy.
you're not
Some
just-
viscosity.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, viscous.
That's
for
JUS for people listening.
Yeah, JOUS for the
Oh,
listeners.
sorry, you
Oh, you know what though? Canada though, Canada likes a gravy, doesn't it? Poutine.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
we do.
poutine is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Very
You know
thick.
about the Commonwealth loves a bit of gravy,
Yeah,
boys.
it's true. I love how
Well,
Jack put that, by
Pakistan
the
loves
way.
a gravy, but we eat it every day. It's called a curry. You know?
Yeah,
I love
spicy
how-
gravy. Yeah.
I love how
Nice.
Jack said viscosity. It's my favorite word from high school science. Resistance to flow. A highly
Yeah.
viscous substance is very resistant to flow. For example, honey. Very,
Yeah.
very high
resistant
viscosity.
to flow.
All
Yeah.
right, boys, let's wrap it up here with
Song of the
or
year.
album of the year, whatever you got. I would need to look up my Spotify right now.
Yeah, why don't you
like
hit
I
us
said, I was gonna say before we were recording, you said save it.
You had a rant.
My Spotify rap this year was embarrassing. It was literally,
Oh.
you know, the
Try
song I
having
listen
kids,
to
mate.
when I'm doing work.
Try having
Yes.
kids
Yeah.
and
Oh
listen
my
to what
god, yeah,
shit
Wheels
you
on
got
the Bus
there.
Go Round and Round, top song. And my number one artist was like 50 Cent or something. It was ridiculous. Like I've
Amazing.
been listening to the same. It was like my gym music. It was like Get Money or like what's the one, Jack? I've sent it to you. as
Yeah.
well.
I get
Money.
money. I
I
get
Get Money. There we go.
a
Classic
tune.
for the gym. You're
a
hitting a
tune.
little deadlift. That's the move. Just put it on repeat. Get in the zone. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look this up while you guys, you know, if one of you can go.
I'll go. I'm going to do it. So last week for the listeners, before I put on my tinfoil hat about the United Healthcare situation, I mentioned I went to the Taylor Swift concert. So I'm going to go song of the year for me was Cruel Summer because that was the first song she opened the concert up with. And MFs were losing their mind. Cruel Summer. Fantastic song. All right. Jack.
Mate, I'm a little dry on the music recommendations. I'm gonna go to you know what I enjoyed actually this year with my Nashville move? New Post Malone album, mate, where he dropped maybe 18 collabs
jeez.
with like the top commercially recognized talent in country music. Lived in Nashville for I think a year, 18 months, recorded it. Some good bangers on there, boys. Some good
Love it.
driving music on there. I'll give a plug to Posty and
friend
his
of the
interview,
pod from Nashville.
friend of the pod, mate, by geographic reasons. And he was on, he did a great interview with Theo Von about that.
Watch the
Recording that
episode.
album.
That was fun.
It was good. Good bands, those lads.
Theo
and
Von,
Post,
to be fair,
Wait,
was probably
Theo
my
and Post
podcast.
was good.
Yeah, he did so
Theo
many.
Von
this year.
Killer, yeah. And Tim Dillon's still knocking out amazing podcasts too. His post-election podcast was class. Like
Yeah.
the day
What,
after
Tim
the
Dillon?
election. Tim Dillon, it was incredible, yeah.
I might
But-
see him live, and I'll tell you after. But in a Christmas period,
He is ridiculously good live,
Because you
man.
went to one of his shows, I think.
He's
right?
so good.
He's
so
just
good.
a force of nature sort of comedian. He's just the energy just keeps going.
Yeah, he's great.
I'll say honestly, I was looking through my Spotify. I genuinely don't have anything really great to share. I will say, because I had dinner a couple nights ago. We were celebrating one of my best friends, Jack. You met him. He's just got a big job. I'll tell you after the pod. But he listened to the pod, and the guy you met with me got a really cool role. So we took him out, celebrated, and it's basically American dudes, and then me and my other friend British. But he was wearing one of our mutual friends was wearing like a rap. What did you say before? Sorry, my brain's got. We've been recording for several hours. What's the four best people of all time? What would you call it again? Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. So he had his Mount Rushmore up there. So that was a great little anchoring point of the conversation. Everyone went around and said like their Mount Rushmore. And then he said, what's the Mount Rushmore, the UK music, because he wanted to get on it. And so it's fresh in my brain. So I wanted to share, if you really want to get into that, the lyricist stuff that me and Jack especially have been fans of, there's a show called Fire in the Booth. And this is not new, but this is old stuff. And honestly, if you take Trung's history, fun fact, fan vibes, and you take the flow of, an American rapper, but the lyricism and the punchlines of a true grime artist. There's a guy called Akala, and my favorite Fire in the Booth is he's got 4 parts to it. And honestly, you got to listen with 2 headphones in.
It's a great one.
And you got to it's like a history lesson, and it's incredible. It's like the way his wordplay, his storytelling is incredible. And there's the other one is Wretch 32. They're my 2 favorite ones. And so we can link them in the post. But they're just,
Wait, hold on.
If you want an intro into that lyricism life in the UK, you should check these out.
Bilal, you remind me of something. You said lyricism. You said hip hop. I was wrong. What was the song of the year? Not Like Us.
Oh, that's true.
Dude, that's it.
I forgot that was this year.
Yeah, that was.
I was going to say Kendrick just dropped an album too. Did you listen to it?
Crazy, right? Yeah. It's still
wild.
2024. Yeah, it's got to be Not Like Us, man.
That's true. That is objectively the song of the year.
Yeah,
it's still going. Did you see that him and Andrew Schultz been having a little back and forth? Because on Kendrick's album, he says a line, something about don't let no white comedian talk about black women. That's a law or something like that. Like whatever. And so Andrew Schultz kind of responded in his art form as his rant as he does in a ridiculous. Like in a I'd be worried for you way sort of thing. Like he'd be saying wild stuff like talking about putting Kendrick on his lap, feeding him a bottle. Has Kendrick
responded to?
No, I doubt it, to be honest.
Well,
because
Kendrick's on another
Kendrick
level,
doesn't
right?
need to do it. Yeah, Kendrick is Kendrick. So, but it was quite. I need to listen to the full album. But being kind, I was just actually texting someone about this. It is kind of cool to see like we all love rap battles. But if you have a comedian responding with comedy, and you get a musician, if he actually responded, that'll be actually quite cool.
Next level.
But anyway, those are the listens of the year for me, but they're literally from 10 years ago, but that's what we got to do. All right, anything else on that, boys? I think we covered all those. Watch, read, listen, song of the year. Should we wrap it up there?
Solid.
Very
guys. Good. All right, thanks for being everyone. We appreciate you. We'll see you guys in 2025. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Peace.